Some weeks ago, the United Kingdom announced that terrorists may attack the Federal Capital Territory, Abuja, advising its citizens to only make essential travels to the capital city of Nigeria. The news of terrorist threats was quickly investigated and by the security agencies in Nigeria, while the federal government assured Nigerians to go about their lawful businesses as the country is safe and secure. However, in its latest update on its website, the UK government, through the Foreign Commonwealth and Development Office, said there was no imminent attack on the nation's capital, but insisted that the risk remained. It therefore advised against all travel to Borno, Yobe, Adamawa, Gombe, Kaduna, Katsina, Zamfara states, and riverine areas of Delta, Bayelsa, Rivers, Akwa Ibom, and Cross River states. Joining us on this show this morning, as we discuss the security situation in Nigeria and the UK's latest update, is Group Captain Sadiq Garube Shehu, retired, a security analyst and chairman, National Humanitarian Mines Action Committee. Welcome to the show, Group Captain Shehu. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning, and good morning, viewers.
Good morning. Well, quickly, your take on this revision of the security alert that was issued 2 weeks ago by the UK as regards Nigeria, particularly the Federal Capital Territory. Now there is an update in which the Foreign and Commonwealth and Development Office of the UK is saying, well, Abuja is safe, the risk remains, but serious threat in 12 other states, and that travel advisory was put on its website. Is this as a result of the efforts that have been made by the federal government of Nigeria to secure the Federal Capital Territory? And at the time, 2 weeks ago precisely, the federal government had complained about the UK, the US, and 4 other countries issuing a security alert on Nigeria without prior engagement with the Nigerian authorities. Do you have information whether in the UK this time around adopted a different strategy? Because we have not heard of any complaint from the Nigerian government authorities.
Thank you very much. First, I would say the fact that the UK government has downgraded its security alert on Nigeria is a good news for us as a country, and it could have been as a result of several factors. Like you mentioned, it could be as a result that by their own estimation, I always emphasize their own estimation, because this raising security alert or lowering it is from the estimation of the country that released that security alert. It is not based on the analysis of the home country security agencies. It is very important to understand that. Now, having said that, anybody who is conversant with what these Western countries do, what they call travel advisory, that is the technical term. Releasing a travel advisory for citizens of that country living in a foreign country is a standard operational procedure for foreign ministries in most Western countries. From that, it is good to understand that those countries realize that if they have one citizen in a particular country, they have a duty to inform him or her if, by their own estimation, again, their own estimation, not the estimation of DSS, not the estimation of Nigerian police, not the estimation of the NSE, their own estimation by their own experts. If they believe that there is risk to their citizens, they have a duty under their own laws for the foreign ministry through the embassy that is resident in that country to issue an alert. The alert is graded. Some countries use numerical scoring, 1 to 4, like the United States. The British people, they do not use a numerical score, but they have descriptive for each level which they give to their citizens. So why I'm always emphasizing that, in as much as no country, including Nigeria, would want it to be said that there's a high security threat in its territory, at the same time, it is good for our policymakers and our security leaders to understand these countries they also believe they have a duty. I'm happy with the way you said. They always what their destiny is an advice to the citizens of their country. It may not necessarily be for Nigerians, but of course Nigerians will hear because of the means with which they transmit such information. Like the one we had, the first one is through Twitter or through other channels. But it is for their citizens. But ultimately, because it is a global world with a lot of social media, we Nigerians will get to hear. But what I want us to understand is that I am happy. You know, you can see this second alert that was given, there was no much hysteria from our security agencies or from our police. I think it is dawning on us, and it should dawn on us, that these countries will continue to emit these security alerts when they feel it is necessary. And unfortunately, contrary to what most experts are saying, they didn't inform us, again, we must understand they are not obligated to go and contact the Nigerian police or the DSS that, look, we want to issue an alert on Nigeria or on Abuja. Do you agree or you don't agree? Or do you have a temporary opinion? They have no obligation to do that. But in arriving at their conclusion, they will also look at what are our security agencies saying. What are they doing? But very important to note, they are not bound to obtain permission from Nigeria. Now, again, I want to bring something that happened. We just had an alert from the UK government in certain areas, not the whole of US. They said there are some synagogues or some religious places in a certain town, whether it is Boston, I really cannot remember, that are subject to attack. The UK issued an alert for its citizens in the United States. I think in international relations, there is no stronger alliance you will find than the alliance between the UK and the United States. But it did not stop the UK government through the foreign office to alert UK citizens that in America that, look, this is the situation. So if we understand these basics, the issue of they hate us, they want to embarrass us, well, it may be. There's embarrassment quotient there. There is effect on our economy there. But understand it from their point of view of they have a duty to warn their citizens. If they feel that they're straight, our security leaders must understand that, as well as our political leaders. Once you understand that, you'll be more prepared on how to handle when such security alerts are going. But instead of doing that, unfortunately, we go into debates that they don't like us, they want to embarrass us. They will do it for any country.
Okay.
Yes.
Group captain, you said something that really, that really got my ears excited. The fact that we've got a system, a modeling system, where once we get this alert, like in America, there's a numeracy system, a numbering system, make up that from 1 to 4, 2, 3, okay, there's a alert, and it's heightened for time. Do we have a system like that based on, sort of like a prorated form of intelligence where we track and we analyze and they're empirical reportage? Do we have?
Well, I think, again, there's a difference in the way we do things in Nigeria and the way they do things in the Western countries. Now, I'm not here to say whether the Western system is the best or it is the only right one and ours is not right, but a system of works differ. What do I mean? Under the Western standards, there is a lot of emphasis on releasing as much information as possible to citizens on security matters. There is emphasis on that. There is, a responsibility for that. If, for example, the UK ambassador here does not release information to UK citizens and something happened, he will answer for it. On the other hand, you find that in Nigeria, again, the culture is to release as little or even nothing at all. That is the honest truth. And again, even in the Western countries, they have a way. They release information for threat within their continental country and how they release for Americas or for inside the UK. In fact, there are two different agencies that do that. If it is something to do with the internal security of the US, of an attack imminent in the US, you will not read it on the US Embassy website in Nigeria, but you will read it in the Department of Home Security. So that is the issue. So it's a system of doing works. Here, our security, and sometimes maybe there are causes for that, because sometimes if you don't release information, at least certain information, you give room for conspiracy theories. You give room for even panic. In the Western system, I emphasize there is the responsibility of releasing as much information. Of course, in security, you don't release information 100%. But in their system, that releasing of information, there is emphasis on it. It may, here I'm speculating, it may even be all the alert, all the indices that the American embassy and the UK released about 2-3 weeks ago. I have a suspicion that our own agencies know it, but it's different of systems of work. Our own security agencies will keep quiet about everything. Their own security agencies, they must release certain information. Why? Because they want the American or the British citizen that is here to be alert, to be ready if it is in terms of evacuation, to be ready, have his what they call runaway bag ready, have his medication ready, contact the nearest embassy, give his address, and update all his information, how many children, how many wives. So they have a duty to propagate that information. On our own side, honest, we do not propagate. And I emphasize, I believe most of the information they released is not that it is even not known to DSS or to military or to police. But our culture is not to release the information. That is the problem.
Okay, talking about security, the chairman of the 33rd regular course of the Nigerian Defense Academy was quoted in one of the papers today as saying that the Chief of Defense Staff should consider recalling retired military officers to come and help with the fight against banditry, kidnapping, terrorism, because at the moment the Nigerian army, or the military generally is overstretched, and that retired military officers could help. Having been trained with state resources, many of them, are still very active. This is not the first time we're hearing this. Security experts have also recommended that given the security situation that Nigeria faces, retired military officers like your good self should come back, to help the country. Well, what do you think of that suggestion? And if you were called up to come and serve again, to help the country, would you personally like to come, and do you think that many of your retired colleagues will still be fit enough to make a contribution to securing Nigeria? Well, of course, the ones that have developed big pot bellies may not be considered fit enough, but certainly there should be many who can still serve.
Oh, thank you very much. I align with the chairman of the 33rd regular course, who incidentally is my senior, because I'm a member of the 35th regular course myself. And his call aligns with several other similar calls that have been made. Without being immodest and without being indiscreet, I have personally served in a security reform committee set up by this current government. 2 committees last year, I have served on them. And one consistent recommendation that has come out of these reports is the need to have a reserve for the Nigerian armed forces. There is no gainsaying. Whether you have the highest technology, whether you have the best weapon, some elements of security operations, you need people on the ground. There are certain things, no matter how sophisticated your equipment is, no matter how sophisticated your technology is, there are some things that only the human being on the ground can do for you. Because no matter, there's no technology that can hold ground for you. You need. And we know it is a non-factor that in Nigeria, with the size of population we have, with the size of our area we have, with the continental ambition we have of being even in the United Nations peacekeeping, African Union keeping, for a size of our military that is not maximum 300,000 is too small. We have done several comparisons between the per capita number of security personnel, or you can say military personnel that's in particular, is too slow. It's too low. But unfortunately, this call for reserve forces, for calling in the retirees, it has always been ignored. 2 reports have been written this year, between last year and this year, on the need for reserve out of the security reform committees that I served. But there is no action on it. The truth is that the troops are too few on the ground. They are too few for the courses. And apart from the reports written for government to put in a reserve, even in the Armed Forces Act, I cannot recall the section now, but there is a section which says in emergency, retired personnel can be called back. but we have never seen the triggering of that section. But having said that, again, when we talk of reserve, I want to dismiss the idea that when we say reserve, it is like every retired person will go. Some people retired after serving 35 years. Of course, you cannot bring somebody who has served 35 years to come and serve a reserve. But you can look for people that have lived in the middle ranking, maybe left as major, lieutenant colonel, or even colonels like me. Maybe we can still do so. And it is not all combat duty. The military profession is full of other supporting roles, which these people can do. The advantage of a reserve, like the senior officer of Tato Regular Court said, is that reserve, you already have a trained product. You already have somebody who is trained. A reserve will always be better than a freshly minted recruit from the Nigerian Depot or the Nigerian Air Force Training Center or from the Nigerian Navy. The reserve has the idea. Some of them are battle tested. So I hope to see, because we have been putting this thing, we have been discussing it, but nothing has been done by the executive, nothing has been done by the legislature. There is need to beef up numbers, commensurate with the size of Nigeria, commensurate with the security task. Even without Boko Haram, even without bandits, Nigeria is under-resourced as far as military is concerned. When you look at what we want our military to do, what the kind of message we want to send across the country. So I completely align with that, and I hope the government is still not too late to start looking at the issue of setting up a reserve force. Again, I have to make the emphasis that having retired officers scattered in Zamfara, in Kano, in Lagos, does not mean having a reserve force. A reserve force is a formal arrangement. It's a formal arrangement. And fortunately for us, even I think the Armed Forces Act or even the Constitution has made a provision that the government can form a reserve. It is something we should do.
Okay. I'd like to still ask you further that do we have a proper mechanism for symbiosis across force or the security force in the country as regards picking up on information and reacting to them based on intelligence? Is there a possibility for something like a dashboard that as the DSS releases reportage, strategic intelligence units across other security forces can pick it up and act part-time, and there can be sort of like a CRM engagement to ascertain if the threat has been dealt with? Suffice to say, and correct me if I'm wrong, that doesn't exist when you look at what happened in the case of the Kuje prison attacks. Is there a possibility for that in the future?
Thank you very much. Here, you are talking of what in intelligence terminology is called intelligence fusion. That is where all the intelligence and security agents, almost all the security agencies, by the way, they have an intelligence arm. And even by nature, any security agency, you can use the term interchangeably: security agency, intelligence agency. Almost every security agencies have an intelligence function. They have intelligence units, but we are still struggling with this idea of fusion. What you are talking about, you are talking of a fusion center. So many fora, so many reports, even again, the Defense Reform Committee in which I served last year, there is this issue of having an intelligence fusion center. We do not have it. However, having said that, I think learning from very hard lessons, I must commend the current crop of security and intelligence agencies. Actually, because they are being bashed left, right, and center, we can see some improvement in that coordination and liaison, but we are still not at the stage where we would want it to be. Intelligence fusion is very necessary, and we learn not only in Nigeria, even in other countries. The September 11 attack in the USA, the report that was written, it found that some elements pointing to that attack happening. Some of the intelligence agencies of the US, they had that report, but others didn't have it. And it is how, as the white man said, that is how some people escaped through the cracks. So that's what made them now to have the Department of Home Security, where everything is channeled as far as it is attack concerning America. I think we should learn. I think we should improve. We should look, talking about, if you look, I can say theoretically, the Office of the National Security Advisor is supposed to be like a kind of a fusion center with all the intelligence agencies of all the security agencies, coming together so that he can filter and advise the political leaders. Unfortunately, I think we need to look at the setup, the powers, the responsibility of the Office of the National Security Agency. Right now, that function is not being properly handled.
I just want to have a follow-up. Wasn't there sort of like a mechanism like this in the days of Ibrahim Badamasi Babangida when they had something called the National Guard? Was further disbanded by Abacha?
Well, National Guard didn't have anything to do with intelligence or intelligence fusion. But again, if you mention National Guard, I think again, some people still call for National Guard or an additional security arm. Me, I think apart from the call for reserve of the armed forces, I think we have too many security agencies now that we do not need anymore. Maybe probably what we have, and here the National Assembly is very key. Sometimes they set up these agencies without looking at the roles and responsibility of the existing ones. A careful study of the Establishment Act of the Nigerian Police, the Nigerian Security and Civil Defense Agency. There was one agency that somebody wanted to set up there, and I think the National Assembly, I think they do not look at the establishment acts of this agency. So what do you have? You have duplication, you have overlap, you have contradiction. In the long run, you have even fight among the security agencies. I'm not necessarily National Guard. I'm not a proponent of National Guard, but I'm a proponent of having developing a reserve force. In fact, if you ask me, I would go as much as to say we might even consider collapsing the National Civil Defense into the Nigerian Police, because police is the premier law enforcement agency, and we are on the police. So when you are on the police to carry your internal security duties, why are you trying to set up other agencies? That is one of the, I can say one of the minuses, despite the good work of the Oronsai report. The Oronsai report, if you look at it, it didn't look at security agencies. It only touched other aspects of government. We need to have something like the Oronsai type of report for the security agencies. There are too many, overlapping, duplicative, and in the long run, you don't have enough police, but you have many people in the civil defense. Why don't you merge them? And for the concept of civil defense, with due respect, if you look what is the idea between civil defense is an international organization, just like you have Red Cross, just like you have Boy Scout. Civil defense is an international organization. The idea of civil defense is not to do police work. It's not to do police work. Anybody can check the website. There is the international organization for civil defense. Check what a civil defense is supposed to do. Under law of armed conflict, there's a certain role that civil defense is doing. But what do we have? If you check from the establishment and the role, you are setting up a clash between the police and the civil defense. And it will eventually happen. We need to look into that.
Okay, Captain. It's good you are talking about some people doing police work.
Group captain, please. Group captain, Mr. Abati. Group captain.
Okay, group captain.
If you say captain, you are removing like 50 years from my service.
Okay. Now I get that emphasis on group captain. Yes. Okay. Now, one of the major observations is that the military is stretched too thin because the military is also doing police work. Almost on a permanent basis now, the military is doing police work. And you just said that the police, they are under, Nigeria is under police. The military, we also don't have enough. Well, should the military be doing police work almost on a permanent basis?
Now, this question is relative. The global best practice is to prevent as much as possible. I emphasize prevent, because probably maybe it's not good to even completely rule out that the ministry will intervene, but you must prevent as much as possible military involvement in internal security operations. And that can only happen if you have a functioning, well-resourced police. Now, when you bring this thing with respect to my police friends, it's a chicken and egg problem. Some of them will go as far as to say that during a certain regime, the military worked against the powers of the police so that they can continue doing internal security operations. But what I'm telling you, the ideal is to reduce the possibility of involving the military internal security operation. Why do I say reduce? Because there was a time people were thinking that you should completely ban the military. But again, I point that they will point to example of America, but that is not a true reflection of what happens in the America. Even the framers of the American Constitution, 200 years plus, they realized in as much as it is not advisable for the U.S. military to be involved in internal security, there may be the sort of threat that will overwhelm police. So they left a small window open. A small window open, but over the history of America, you can count the number of times that they deployed the military in civil, in internal security operations. On the contrary, I think in our own, we are overusing the military internal security operation. Again, I come back to the Security Reform Committee. It also said, one very powerful message, the committee said that unless you bring the police up to date in terms of numbers, in terms of equipment, in terms of management, in terms of resources, you will not stop involvement of military in internal security operation. So it is not an ideal situation, and we should reduce it. However, we have to understand that in our constitution, section 271 or something like that, it left where it says the military can be deployed in insurrection. Well, there's no definition of what insurrection is, which is maybe again why this is. So almost any happening within the country that the commander-in-chief believes forms insurrection, he can deploy the police. By our constitution, it's not illegal, but we should find a way of minimizing that incident. It is only the way. In fact, there are experts who believe if the more the military does internal security operation, the less they are capable of fighting a war. Because the skills or the tactics that you need for internal security operation are different from when you are facing enemy. So when you are used to internal security operation, when war comes, your military may not be able to fight the war. And the military is for fighting war, first and foremost.
Okay. I mean, very, very exciting conversation, Group Captain. And that was going to take me back to the talk about National Guard. Let's also segue the conversation to the American antecedents. The American antecedents actually started from state militias across state lines, had different militias that were morphed into something called the National Guard. But also, there's a caveat because they are solely at the behest of the governor of that state. So you need to be able to take permission from the governor of the state before you trigger it. Now that we're beginning to have, can I use the word, state militias or state police like Amotekun and the likes, is there a possibility of integration? Because you see, those guys also are there for intelligence gathering. And they do have that intelligence when they gather it. How can we have that intelligence gathered by probably Amotekun somewhere on the dashboard of the DSS in real time with the technological antecedents to it?
Despite the misgivings being, highlighted, unfortunately, with due respect, due to the lack of maturity of our political leaders, people are including myself, you express fear that a governor who is not matured enough might put, these state architectures to the wrong use. He might even wonder his political opponents. He might just clamp on people that he's not agree with. But I think with the advent of these state structures, I think we can say the genie is out of the bottle. As a security commentator, I think this debate will continue until finally we have some form, whether you call it state police, whether you call it Amotekun, whether you call it Hizbah, I think we'll arrive at that. What the federal government should be doing right now, since the debate has already reached advanced stage, I do not think the debate will die, is to look at the structures, to look at the enabling environment, to look at how these agencies, if set up, how they are going to be used so that it will not bring into abuse. You are right about the National Guard in the US being in each state. You are also right in that under normal circumstances, they report to the governor of the state. But again, the Americans being as wise as they are, there is always the liaison between the governor of the state and the Department of Defense of when he or she needs to deploy the National Guard. In essence, he's their commander, but there's always that discussion for the National Guard. And again, even in the American system, where a state governor, there's a problem in his state, and he didn't take action by deploying the National Guard, there is a mechanism by which the federal government can kick in and take over. So you see, all this is sometimes making comparison between US and Nigeria, or any country with Nigeria. We have to look at the political, terrain, the legal terrain, but certainly we can draw some lessons without actually adopting it in toto. That is what I have to say about this issue.
Group Captain, just before we begin to round up, what advice will you give the federal government of Nigeria with this update by the UK authorities? We haven't had any reaction yet, or maybe I have not seen one, but I hope this time around they are not going to react again and say, oh, you didn't tell us. The 12 states you mentioned are in fact the safest parts of Nigeria. What would be your professional advice?
My professional advice is this. Yes, I also noticed, as somebody who follows this event closely and studied them, and I said at the beginning of this interview, we didn't see the hysteria or the conspiracy theories of we caught Americans stealing fuel is because of Russia. There is nothing you didn't hear. This time around, I see the security leaders being calm. I think what I have said in several media is sinking in, which is these countries will never forego their right, their sovereign right, to warn their citizens. I think that lesson is sinking in gradually. That's why I didn't see any reaction. It is also sinking in that despite what our security just said that they didn't inform us, again, it is also sinking in that they are not duty bound, and they may not have to inform us that we are going to release a security this thing. So for this, I am happy, because once you understand how something works, then you will know how you will respond. And how do you respond? The country that releases the security alert have a duty to protect their citizens by their own estimation. It may not be your own estimation. Again, I have to emphasize something here. I follow security alerts all over the world by nature of the work that I do. It is not an exact science. What do I mean it's not exact? It doesn't mean because America or UK said Abuja is under the threat of terrorist attack, it doesn't mean that 100% is going to happen. But for the security man, even if there's alert 10 times and it didn't happen, it doesn't mean if there's alert the 11th time, he will say, last year, did they not say the same thing? Nothing happened. Unfortunately, the security man does not have that luxury. If you are roused 110 times and nothing happened, if they rouse you up 100 and the second time, you again have to activate your action. So I think these lessons are being learned. And how do we, our concern is not to put fear in our citizens, but at the same time, again, not to make our citizens complacent. Look, people will tell you, in fact, when I look at the security rating in the US Embassy, there is no country that has a score of 0. That is to say, there is no security threat. So there will always be security threat. So I think we are learning the lesson that it is not right to come and say it is a lie. We didn't see anything. These people are after us. They want to know. That is not the professional way to look at it. Listen to them, but at the same time, assure your citizens. The speech released by President Muhammadu Buhari after the comments of other security, to me, I'm being frank here, I found it. What President Muhammadu Buhari said, without quoting him verbatim, is that such security alerts are normal. Countries will continue to issue them. As we approach the election, I am not a soothsayer, but security, elections, periodic elections, because of the way we do them, will always trigger a security alert. You watch what will happen. But what the government needs to do, instead of fighting the people with the security alert, is to assure the citizens that, look, with or without this alert, we are always doing our best. Let the people see it. Let the people have confidence in the security alert. I think that's a better approach than saying they are against us, they are lying, they didn't inform us. They will not inform us. They are not obliged to inform us. And they have a duty to warn their personnel, and they will not allow that duty to go away. Now, when we had last week that there's a security alert in the US, there is absolutely nothing wrong with the U.S. embassy in Nigerian embassy in Washington to also issue alert that for Nigerians that are living, I think it is New Jersey, that are living around New Jersey, please take precautions. Let's know where you are. Minimize your movement. There's nothing wrong at all with Nigeria doing it. However, if you don't do a duty of alerting your own citizens, it doesn't mean the other country has a duty not to alert its citizens. So embarrassment may be there. It may affect our economy. But for the person issuing the alert, he thinks he's doing his work to his own citizens. And he will not forego that right to alert his citizens. So this is the advice I'm giving our security leaders and even political leaders. We need to understand how these people do these things, even though this is not how we do it, and then understand things that are within their sovereign right to do. Just like Nigeria can issue alert to Nigerians living anywhere. If we believe, if DSS or Army or NSA tells us that there is a problem in Ghana or in Namibia or wherever, Nigeria has a right to want the citizens there. We should understand that. So that is the advice that I will just give. Instead of hysteria and conspiracy theories, we should give advice to the political masters as security professionals. There's tendency to mass. Sometimes it's not been, how can I say, unpatriotic to tell the security that, look, this is what made these people to give this alert. This is what we are supposed to do. Face the facts.
Thank you. Well, thank you very much, Group Captain Garba Shehu, for joining us on the morning show. Thank you very much indeed.